Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of TCG Talk, back today with another video. It's been a minute, I apologize, been doing some good stuff in my personal life, really prepping for a new job, but we're back today with a spicy one. They're talking about the scheduled ban and restricted announcement that just came out, and it has some really changing things to the metagame. We're going to get right into it, but if you are new to the channel, welcome. Thank you so much for stopping by. If you're a long-standing supporter, thank you so much as always. We'll get right into it. So I'm gonna read the top line, and then we will talk about what Brian said below in the reasonings for it. But Bonds of Ancestry Yellow and Bonds of Ancestry Blue have been banned. 2/3 of the color cycle for the card have been banned. So now you only can play the red regardless of hero. It's not a hero-specific ban. And we're gonna talk about it. This is not the direction I thought they were going to go. And I don't mean that in any way, shape, or form. It's just like kind of shocking. Not in a negative way. I thought they were going to go into a way that kind of just hurt Zen specifically and not the class. But it's kind of hard to do that. And Brian talks about that down below. So when we were coming up on this announcement, I didn't think my main thought was that they actually weren't going to have any bans. They were going to let it play out a little bit longer. If you look at win rate, Zen is about a 35% win rate currently at the time of recording this video for national season, whereas the last bannable hero in Lexi, or like hero that warranted a ban in Lexi, was about a 40% win rate, and Lexi only saw like bullseye bracers, right? So I thought that they might not even make any bans at all. They might just let Zen be a very powerful deck and force people to try to like really come up with an answer to it. But over the last week, even with New and Victor kind of coming up, we still see that even decks that are literally building to hard counter nothing but this hero, sacrificing other relevant matchups in the process, still lose to this deck, right? And so that, even though I thought they wouldn't make a change, I always said in my head, if they make a change, I get it, right? The next most likely for me was Stride Reprisal. But the problem with that is I don't think it knocks Zen down a whole lot. It really just prevents him from having a stupid Art War turn. But all of his degenerate stuff really comes from Bonds of Ancestry. And it makes sense for them to touch Bonds of Ancestry here. I like that they didn't full ban it, because the reason I didn't think they were going to touch Bonds at all is because it really does hurt Katsu. If I had to look at this through a kind of critical lens, I would have wished they would have just banned Bonds of Ancestry Blue, because it gets rid of, having played blue cards and the synergy with blue cards and all that other stuff. But I understand why they had to ban both. But Brian talks about here, right, as always the case when a hero is this squarely on the border of very good and too good, the topic of Zen ban's been very debated in their internal circles, right? And he talks about down here below that Zen was the final hero in part the Mistveil to reach a finished state, and it was not due to focus or effort, but he kept breaking, is what he's saying. Like attack for 400 type fashion is what Brian was saying. And what I think what he's saying here is he says the focus on Crouching Tigers and Zen's intended identity as an aggro combo deck left balancing Zen a monumental task. While a hero that explosive is troubling, we also found that nerfing even a single element of his kit turned him into an unplayable wreck that folded at the barest hint of disruption. Frankly, this makes sense. Threading the needle on the development of a glass can aggro deck is massively challenging. In the end, I'm extremely proud of how our team delivered Crouching Tigers Zen. So the reason that that's important is I think this is me kind of reaching or like putting the two together, and Brian kind of talks about it in this article. I think they kept breaking the Crouching Tiger side of Zen and not the Bonds of Ancestry side of Zen. And he kind of talks about that, right? He says, but of course there's Bonds of Ancestry. I've been asked several times if our team explored Bonds in Zen list, and the answer is absolutely yes. But this is a clear example of a time where the real world just did it better than we did, with so much focus placed on Crouching Tigers, on getting Crouching Tigers into an acceptable place. Our Bonds lists were not refined enough to showcase the true ceiling of the archetype. So I think what he's saying here is internally they kept breaking just the pure Crouching Tiger builds. Like they kept like doing these crazy turns, and they used Bonds, but they probably didn't. In my guess is they probably didn't say like, hey, like let's build a list completely around Bonds, right? I think they were probably like every testing team, excited with the new cards, excited with the new archetypes, and really trying to get Crouching Tigers in right. And I think because of that, they might have sacrificed a little bit of testing time on the bonds line, right? So he says, furthermore, Zen in our internal environment were born in a very different metagame than those in the real world. Unlike Zen, our new list had reached a point of refinement. He goes on to shout out some of the really good new players. Because new has made a ready-made predator for Zen, heavily represented in our metagame, our Zen list played things a bit safer than those in the real world and tried to find resiliency in the massive amounts of disruption. This again left up underestimating his ceiling. So that's very interesting, and it's kind of funny as a ninja player. Like, you'll have some ninja players, like I think Pudding Tom, who's one of the best ninja players in the world, has a really good like style for this, where he plays a little bit safer, in my opinion. He plays more mid-range. He plays more down to earth in a good way, right? He plays for different ways where he can be flexible because he's from Katsu. But in Zen, really, you're just going to say, okay, I have two ways of attacking this disruptive deck in new. I can either play safe and try to push through the disruption in that way, or I can just say, screw you, I'm going to play the degenerate bonds list, and I'm just going to not care if you disrupt me and push through you with my armor blocks, and then I'm just going to hit you so hard that it doesn't matter, right? So I think that their internal team didn't do that second way of thinking, and everyone outside of the world did. So that's kind of how it is. It says, as mentioned, there were multiple avenues for us to tame Zen's power. Options like Stride Reprisal could offer us a light nerf to akin to Bullseye Bracers. Removing Ancestral Harmony could tone down the variance and take away a blue key card and an Anthem. But seriously, is there anyone who watches Zen do its thing and doesn't view Bonds of Ancestry as a clear source of degeneracy? I agree. Bonds of Ancestry is the culprit, right? So he also talks about here, I wanted to kind of point this out. He says, however, Bonds of Ancestry was created with a very specific task. Bonds was designed to break Katsu from the shackles of extremely predictable combat math that always can be simply defended against by players who knew the matchup well. And they don't want Katsu to go back to pre-Outsider days. I think Katsu's going to go back to it, but here's a little trinket here, y'all. It says, when we decide to ban cards, we do not do so lightly. We expect that Katsu can still find ways to bring dishonor upon all his opponents, perhaps with some coming help from the Rosetta expansion slot. So it looks like Katsu is going to be getting an expansion slot card, which is awesome. Super excited about that. We'll keep an eye on that. But let me know what your thoughts are. This is just the first part. We'll get into like some of the sub points of this ban restricted announcement. But I was not expecting them to go this way. I personally wish they would have just done blue. But at the end of the day, like, I get why they did what they did. The other examples were Art of War, which, again, if Chain can't ban Art of War, there's no way Zen's going to. Stride Reprisal, I don't think is a hard enough hit. And no bans, right, and stuff like that. And then if you look at our stuff, Ancestral Harmony was probably the other good middle ground, but it really doesn't take away from Zen's degenerate play line. It just takes away that one, like, stupid play that he can do, which is like Harmony and Art of War, right? So that's one thing. Other notes that I think is actually really relevant. The following changes to Living Legend are effective Monday, July 8th. Channel Lake Frigid is now unrestricted. You now can run 3 copies of it instead of just the 1. It says, given its former state, it's admittedly challenging to reach some conclusions about the Living Legend format. Restriction calls right now are being made so much on instinct. The sample size for our internal development team is able to explore in a smattering of tournament results. The unrestriction of Channel Lake Frigid is based on 3 assumptions. 1, restrictions targeting Bravo Star of the show have done the trick. The restriction of both Hypothermia and Channel Lake have swung the format predominantly too far into aggression, which I 100% agree. Without Channel Lake Frigid, Icelander literally just can't stop, like, Belittlefy with stubby hammers or Chain. Icelander is a hero we actually want to be a part of Living Legend metagame, and splash damage to our card pool is a significant downside of Channel Lake, which I agree with. So that's kind of cool. And then finally, as previously, Crown of Seas is banned, Ether Wildfire is banned, and Ether Flare is banned. I guess they're trying to prepare for some of the wizards that are going to be coming into the metagame. They talk about how there's some cleanup. Ether Wildfire and Ether Flare simply do not scale well within Blitz. The damage amplification they provide twice as effective into reduced life totals, and the pairing with these 2 cards are even worse. These cards played in multiples creates nightmarish output for sub 20 health opponents. I think it's because they're going to be amp is going to be a huge keyword, as we can see with this wizard weapon that they spoiled inadvertently in here, or on purpose. But in addition to. With Amp being such a key thing, I think, in the new set, they can't afford to have like an Ether Wildfire and Ether Flare. Like, it's just the amount of height that those cards can already get currently with just Kindle and Cindering Foresight is insane. Like, I literally saw an Ether Wildfire, I forgot what nationals it was, for 9 on stream, which is unreal. So I understand why they're doing what they're doing. But Volzar, the Lightning Rod, if you control an aura permanent with Sigil in its name, this costs 1 less to activate, so it's free. Once per turn instant, Amp X, where X is the number of lightning cards you've played this turn. Very interesting. I'm super excited to see about this. I really don't know. This is kind of a different video, but regardless, let me know what you think about the Bonds of Ancestry ban. I see it. I understand why they did it. I'm sad to see how this is going to hurt Katsu, because it is. It's going to hurt Katsu pretty significantly, because Katsu kind of needs this to be like relevant. So I'm hoping that not relevant, but to be up there with the big dogs, right? So I hope that this expansion slot we're getting for Rosetta is pretty cool for Katsu. But let me know what your thoughts on Zen. Do you think this changes anything? Do you think Zen is still the best deck? I personally, my knee-jerk reaction is I do think Zen is still the best deck in the format. I don't think this changes his overall top spot, but it does take away some of the degeneracy. But thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this. If you did, please, if you like, comment, or subscribe. I'm going to try to get back and making videos. My life's been really busy this last week in a good way. I'm starting a new schooling, a new job. And so I've just been prepping for that in a really healthy way. So thank you all so much for your patience. Hopefully y'all have a great rest of your day, and I'll see y'all next time on TCG Talk.